Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson and this is Typography News number 16. Objectives Typography News number 16. It's been a couple weeks. Today is September 14th, 2025, and we're going all in on fonts today, all new typefaces. I got 13 of them for you. Not going to be distracted by branding, not going to be distracted by anything else. Today we're looking at 13 new typefaces. Let's just go ahead and jump into them. I'll give you a little preview of what's to come once I share my screen here. I think it'll be easier. So I got the typefaces over here on the left that we're going to look through, and then my face down there at the bottom like usual, and then we'll start looking at the typefaces in the browser. So first up, well, let's go through the list real quick. We're going to have SilverStag, Michael, I should know how to say Michael's name, but I don't. Rafilyk. Eikou Zhang, Identity Letters, SimpleBits, HAL Typefaces, PS Type, Brandon Nickerson, Pangram Pangram, Blaze Type, Hot Type, and another Hot Type. The two Hot Types there at the bottom because they're not released yet, so if we don't get to them, it's not going to be the end of the world. We'll get to them on another episode, but I'm pretty confident. We got about an hour and a half of time available to us, so I think we'll be able to get through all of these. And I'm pretty excited. There's some really good ones, and that's why I wanted to do all typefaces today, all new releases. Some of these aren't quite new releases, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But all fonts today because there was just such a good group of them to choose from, and since we took last week off to play Hollow Knight Silksong, since we took last week off, I didn't want to skip any of the typefaces because that's always what this channel's about. So let's get into the first one. This is SilverStag. He always does, I'm not sure Alan's last name, but Alan is the designer of this. He also has a podcast. He recently changed the name of the podcast. You can go look that up. I think it's called Captain Offbeat or Captain Off something. Used to be called Type Convo Podcast or something like that, but it's on YouTube. Go check it out if you're interested in that. You could probably find a link somewhere on his website here, SilverStagType.com. But today we are looking at La Mystére. I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly. SilverStag, I think, is a Spanish. Yeah, it's a Spanish type foundry. I've got three screens going on here, so I'll be looking over here to see chat if anybody hops in. I'll be looking over here to see my notes about these, and then looking straight ahead at what we're doing. But Alan always does a great job with the SilverStag specimens. Anybody that's been around the channel for very long knows that I really appreciate good typeface specimens. I think only second to like the typeface story. Like I'm a sucker for a backstory on a typeface, but I really love the specimens, and I think they're particularly useful for designers and anybody that's not a typeface designer or anyone that's not like a super experienced typographer, because it can be difficult sometimes to know how a typeface might be used, what its intended purpose is, and things like that, and to just kind of get some ideas about what you might be able to accomplish with it. So SilverStag always does a great job with the specimens, as I click through a few of them here right now. Let's get into the background on this one. He's calling this one an editorial typeface. He calls a lot of his typefaces editorial typeface. I went ahead and searched for it right here, and you can see this. I'm not 100% sure. I did reach out to him and ask like what sets this apart from your other editorial typefaces. What sets this apart from your other like editorial like serif typeface, high contrast serif font that he's calling it. But he didn't respond. That's fine. We'll look at what's presented here, and then I'll give my take about it at the end. I'm guessing that he calls this an editorial typeface because of, like high quality fashion type magazines. That's what this looks like it would appeal to me. He's got a lot of these, what would you even call these? They're not the standard ligatures. I can't think of what they're called now. But he's got a lot of these ligatures that kind of look nice in specimens and stuff like this. And I think they would probably look great in the right setting for headlines. Clearly it's a modern typeface. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes over here. Like I said, it's been 2 weeks. I'm a little rusty on this. But I'm not sure the technical, let's go ahead and just scroll through some of this. you can see he's also mentioning this as like an expressive retro typeface. Yeah, you can see down here at the bottom of the specimen. Probably not if you're watching on TV or maybe in on a phone, but trust me, it says expressive retro typeface. And I can kind of get that when you look at this. I'm not sure exactly what the retro influence is. I did ask him that as well in an email last week. But like I said, no response. So we're not going to know exactly what he was referencing there. There's only two styles. There's regular and italic. Being a Spanish, at first I was like, who's ever going to use this law? Because this is a ligature right here. So that's pretty cool, right? But being a Spanish foundry, I guess that makes more sense than if you were English speaking, because we're probably not going to use that too much. But it looks cool for the typeface itself. You can see I'm just scrolling through all of the glyphs right now that are included. I did a quick count on this. He doesn't list how many glyphs are included, but I always like to know, and I like to let you know. It's about 600. So you've got about 600. Let's see if I wrote down the language support on here. I didn't write down the language support either, but you can see with all of these characters, you're getting pretty good Latin support. I think you're going to get quite a bit actually. So you've got basic Latin, Latin supplemented, extended A, extended B, IPA extensions. You've got the Latin extended additional. Like it's going to cover probably anything Latin that you need. And then you've got your standard ligatures down here. I thought that the EC and ET would be like discretionary ligatures, but he's calling them standard. So that's interesting. Yeah, so this is the first one. It's got a lot of open type features. You know, it is what it is. If you've been around and if you've seen any of SilverStag typefaces before, you'll recognize it doesn't look super dissimilar from other editorial typefaces and other high contrast serif typefaces that he's done before. Maybe that comes across, maybe I get that vibe because these specimens are kind of like, what would you call it? It's like a template, you know, like he's kind of reusing the layout for the specimens, which is nice because then you can tell the difference between them, but it can also make them feel very samey, right? Whenever you've got very similar textures and things like that. But you can see there's a lot of character in these. There's a lot of big like teardrops, terminals on there. Nice strong serifs. It's very smooth. Yeah, I can understand why it's retro, and I can definitely understand how it could be used for editorial. It is priced at, I wrote down the prices for all of these this week. It is priced at 89 euros for the full family. Right now that only includes the two styles that I mentioned, but he does make a note that this is going to be expanded towards the end of September by his estimates. It's going to be expanded into 9 weights per style. So right now you're getting like 2 styles total. When this gets expanded, if you purchase now, you'll get all 18 styles because there's going to be 9 for Roman, 9 for italic. And I think that's a pretty good deal. If this is what you need and you have like faith that he's going to deliver on the promise to expand it, the price is going to go up when he expands it. So I'm not a fan of the FOMO. I'd rather just buy something knowing that I want it, not necessarily that I feel like I'm going to miss out on something or I'm going to miss out on this deal. But if this is something that you would buy for like 80 euros right now, then I think it's just a huge bonus that you're going to get this expanded into 18 styles versus the 2 that you have right now. Moving on. This is one of my favorite ones. Let me see how we can open this. There we go. This is one of my favorite ones of the week, for sure. I did talk to, hopefully I'm saying his name right. He's Ukrainian type designer, Michael. I'm not sure if it's pronounced differently in Ukraine, and I won't butcher your last name again, but I did spell it wrong right here, so I'm going to correct that. Michael Rafilyk. Hopefully I'm saying it right. But this typeface, Noeler, like Noel, like the Christmas, terminology, is really fun and super affordably priced. It's still being released. So like right now it's on my fonts, I Love Typography and Creative Market. And I even believe Creative Market right now has a little bit of a deal on it. Yeah, so you can get the web font like a little bit cheaper. You'll have to check out the licenses. I'm not super familiar with the differences and the nuances between all of these. But I'm sure if you have a particular foundry that you like to purchase from, then it's not going to be much different. It looks like the prices are all the same. $12 for like if you just want one style, but 25 for all three. So there's three different typeface. There are three different what would you call it? Like different styles of this, because it is a color font. So you've got the standard static that's in the white there, and he's calling it pasta. Then you've got the colored one here that's like the candy cane that's like white and it looks like a little bit off-white, and then that pink color for the candy. And then you've got fir tree. And when I first saw this, I was like, fir tree, okay, it's red and green, like that's Christmassy, I get it. But then I saw all of these. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. I'm not sure how much I can zoom in because, yeah, it's gonna break it after a little bit. But we can get it to right here. Hopefully you can see some of these decorations here. It comes with 50 decorations. I did talk to him too about this, and he said that this is something that he started doing when he released one of his recent typefaces. It was called, I switched over to from Notion to Obsidian recently, and I still haven't gotten my brain easily able to like quickly like glance over and see what I'm trying to see. Kingfall. So this is the typeface. He started doing decorations with this one, and then he said that it's just kind of continued from there. So he's got 50 stylistic decorations that come included with the typeface. And he did make a note and said, these are like a jumping off point to kind of demonstrate to people what they can do with it. And I think it's really cool. I think that they work in very well with the typeface, and particularly they help demonstrate the fir tree portion, because with these lines and the inspiration coming from candy canes, I guess I should have started with that. As the name suggests here, Noeler candy, it was inspired by candy canes. So he's talking about the J, how a candy cane is just a J upside down, and it's got the stripe around it. Trying to figure out like, how can I make a typeface out of this? Cool concept, love it. And you can even see some of the candy canes over here in these decorations. And then expanded this into like a full typeface based on that concept. So the idea is to like keep this playful without being childish. And so he's made a couple of notes here. Let me go ahead and see if I can read some of them. Yeah, so he's got it down here. I'm going to go ahead and read his words exactly because my brain isn't working so well. Concept, shape, and color. We can probably zoom in a little more on this without breaking the site too bad. So the story of this font begins with the shape of a candy cane, which resembles the Latin capital letter J. So he's got this twisting shape with these colors, could be letters. So he thought it would be interesting, builds it out, and then realizes like, oh, the black and white one kind of looks like pasta. I think that this will end up being used for like all kinds of things where you see these stripes. But I think similar to the decorations, I think this is a great sort of jumping off point with the pasta, the candy, the fir trees. So it says, the shapes are assembled from tightly packed lines, sometimes twisted into a rope and sometimes directly parallel. The challenge was to make the shapes of the letters easily recognizable even without a clear outer contour. That's why the lines are quite dense, but not so dense that the colors of neighboring lines merge with each other. So I think this is a particularly like difficult balance to strike and a difficult thing to achieve in general, to be able to make, let's look at some of these other ones, to be able to make this work in a way that you know what the shapes are, that you know what the characters are without having that outline, because it's pretty difficult. It can be pretty difficult to do something like this and to get this to read out as Northwind Milk Stout. I'm not sure what that means. I guess it's a beer. It says St. Dude Brewery. I think it's just a mock-up, but it can be difficult to get this to work to be like a legible thing. But I think he's achieved it very well by doing what he talked about with the tight spacing with the lines, and then no outer border on it. He's knocked it out. of the park. So mood and feel. The vision suggests the mood that the font should be festive and Christmassy. When else to savor candy canes than during the winter holidays? So the handwritten style fits as well as possible. Like it's better than like a geometric like sans serif, you know. There are asymmetrical serifs in the lowercase and a bit of fracture in capital letters. So I think that's really fun that he's kind of building these things into the typeface to make it even more playful. I really feel like my brain is just not working right now. But the thing that I thought was most impressive about this was the number of glyphs included. So it's going to cover 509 languages. First of all, that's crazy. This is a display typeface. As we're going to see in a little bit, a lot of display typefaces, you know, they're going to cover like basic Latin and maybe not even that, like maybe not even have lowercase letters. This one's covering 509 languages. He's planning to add more. It's got 1,452 glyphs. And that was actually the purpose of me emailing him in the first place, was to be like, is that really the number of glyphs like per style? Or is this like the total number of glyphs for the 3 different styles, the pasta, the candy, and the fir tree? He assured me this is the full number of glyphs. And let's see, I think we can see maybe we can't. So here's all the languages. That's just insane. I thought that we could see the letters. I guess we could type them out if we wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. So anyway, back to what I was saying. 1,452 glyphs. You know, he confirmed that that's what it is. I told him that's crazy. It's got a bunch of ligatures and things like that. That was one thing I wanted to point out. I thought was really cool. So I know this is a little messy. The ligature here for like the T and the H, I guess we don't need the right there. Goodness, Curtis. So there's TH like separate. And then if you do TH for the ligature, ligatures in general are already kind of like a tricky thing. Not that I'm like a type designer. I'm a type enthusiast, but they're already can be like a difficult thing. But he's managed to do it even with all of these lines. So he's got these lines and then just redraws them to connect them. And I didn't even actually look to see which. Doesn't look like there's an FI. Or is there? No. They almost work though, don't they? Look at that. Sorry. These are things that I should do on my own time. But you can see, even with this crazy display typeface, he's built in ligatures for it. He's got huge language support, huge glyph count, which would be mandatory for all of these languages, right? He's planning to expand it even further. It's a color font, so you can go in, you know, this isn't going to work in a lot of, it does work. It works in like Affinity, it works in Adobe, but you're not going to be able to easily change the colors yet. That's just down to the design apps, but you can do it with CSS, override it. He even explains to you how to do it here. So it's got all of these features, and it is $25 to buy the whole thing. So as we're going to see today with other typefaces and even other display fonts, $25 for all of this just seems insanely worthwhile to me. If this is, you know, a typeface that you need. Obviously, if you don't need something, $25 is still a loss of $25. Or I mean, you know, yeah, it's $25 you could spend on something else. But I think if you need a Christmassy typeface that isn't the cliche of every other Christmas typeface, or if you just need something with these lines, I don't know. I can think of this being like tire tracks. I can think of this being kind of like scratches. I can think of this being like ropes. He mentioned it as pasta. I can see all kinds of situations where this could be a really, really cool display typeface. Obviously, the decorative, you know, symbols aren't going to work for that. But yeah, the bakery too, because, you know, sometimes you got the bakeries where they're like the twisting the bread and stuff. I don't know. I think this is a great deal, and he seems really cool. So that's my subjective take on it. But hopefully you got the objective scope of what's going on here. This next one isn't, oops, how can I go back? Okay. I have them on 2 different monitors here. This next one is not actually a font that you can get, unfortunately. And it's actually, I'm cheating a little bit. It's not brand new. This one came out, I want to say in like, this one came out, was posted to Instagram originally in June. But when I look at like the metadata on this website, it looks like it was actually finished. It was uploaded to this website in May. So we're definitely not looking at something that's brand new, but I think a lot of people will be coming in contact with it for the first time because it's nice that just published an article covering this, doing an interview with Eikou, hopefully I'm saying that right, Eikou Zhang. And this really cool typography project that he put together. I'm not going to read this article. I'm just going to show this to you because this is where I got, where I first came across it. I do have this linked in the description along with every typeface that's listed here. So if you're like, Curtis, this is taking too long, chapters aren't added to this live stream yet, go down, click in the description, and you can see all of these without waiting for me. Or if you're watching live, you can click and follow along. So you're kind of getting a preview of what's going on here, right? This is Chinese knotting, these Chinese knots. And there's only 2 different styles of knots here. It's a clover knot. There's a 4-loop knot and a 3-loop knot. And originally he was starting out with just a 4-loop knot, but it was making some of the characters difficult to create. Let's just stick with one of these. We'll stick with this one. It was making some of the characters difficult to create because like the C and the S and some of the round shapes would become too boxy. So once he added like having the 4-loop knot and the 3-loop knot, then it made it possible to still have the modularity, still have the cohesiveness, but be able to create all of these cool characters. Do I think that this would be legible in like a situation where you weren't looking at the Latin alphabet in order? No, probably not, but it is super cool. And when you do know what you're looking for, it's pretty easy, relatively easy to decipher. I think in context, it would be pretty easy to decipher. So originally created based with these like physical knots. Let's look right here. I think these do a pretty good job. Oh, that's downloading it. Okay, let's look at this. Can we get this to fill the screen? Instagram is so weird. That it looks it looks absolutely awful too. Okay, there we go. So he mentions in the interview that his favorite way to like see this used is the combination between the digital and the physical. So if you can't tell by this picture right here, the physical knots right here are how it was created, but then he digitized them into what we're seeing on the top and bottom of this. So if we look at this, we've got the physical version of it. We scroll down and we've got the digital. My initial thought was like, oh, just scan it and like reshape them. But if you look at it closer, the knots on here are much bigger and much messier, which is, pretty much impossible to, you can't get rid of that contrast in real life. The knots take up the space that they take. You can use a smaller string or rope or whatever, but then the outer portions, the big loops, are going to be smaller too, and it's going to ruin the contrast, blah, blah, blah. But when you go digital, you do have the ability to make this, not sure why it's so far over to the left. There must be menus up here on the left. Yeah, there is. But you can make these knots a lot smaller, and so it does improve like the legibility of it in terms of actually being able to read what it says. I think the digital version's a little bit easier to read, but it's incredibly, what would you say, abstract. It's incredibly abstract. It's not going to be super legible, but it is really, really cool. And I do agree that the combination of these are like a really special thing because, I don't know, there is something about the combination between the physical and the digital where the physical demonstrates to you like what's happening with the digital, and the digital sort of serves as like this legend or like this sort of like iconography to like help you understand what the knot is actually what character the knot actually is. And to be honest, I don't even know what this one's supposed to be. Let's look up here and see if we can figure it out. It looks like none of them. No, it looks like the A. So it looks like the A to me. And then the string is still, the rope is still coming down a little further. So, but without this, without seeing it in context, I guess it's kind of difficult to know. But yeah, this in the article, I almost emailed him to ask, like, when is this going to be released? If it would ever be released. But then I read in the article in the It's Nice That interview and said that he's not in a rush to release this as like a font that you can purchase. He wants to let it like come together organically, which I'm grateful for that. I don't, it would be really easy to kind of like rush this out right now and get some quick money based off this article. If this article had a link at the bottom of it to go buy the font, I'm sure a lot of people would just go buy it, and then they might be disappointed if it's not like fully fleshed out. My guess is that right now, honestly, this is probably just an SVG. It's probably just all in Illustrator, or pleasantly surprised to see you live. GL, I took off last week. Sorry, I wish there was timestamps on here. Maybe there's a way to show the timestamps. There we go, timestamps. Now I can see how far behind I am. 3 minutes behind. Yeah, I took last week off for Silksong, but I'm back this week and I'm very rusty, but I'm doing my best here. How did you play Silksong? Do you play Silksong? How's everything going for you? But yeah, I really thought that this was cool. It's not a font that we can get yet, but hopefully one day it will be. And if that day comes, I will definitely be reporting on it, because this is one that I would just buy even though I don't need. Doing all right. Good to hear. Yeah, I played a ton of Silksong. Just to follow up, I played a ton of Silksong the last 10 days, I guess. It came out on the 3rd, I think. No, yeah, I don't know. However long it's been, a week and a half or whatever. I played a ton of Silksong. I love it. Haven't finished it yet, but it's really, really fun. But let's see if we can get through some more of these typefaces. These next ones are ones that we can actually get. This is from Identity Letters. This is Allrounder Baroque. So Allrounder is actually part of a bigger, I haven't played Silksong or Hollow Knight. Neither one. Hollow Knight's definitely easier. It's like playing, I don't know, like I would compare them to like Mario 3 and like Super Mario World in the way that like they're super similar, but like one's just a little more complex. But they're really fun. And well worth the price. They're pretty cheap. I think Hollow Knight's like $15 right now. Sometimes it goes on sale for like $5, and then Silksong is brand new, but it's just $20. So I think they're worth the money. But if you don't like Metroidvanias, then they're not going to be that interesting, I don't think. And then the other thing is they're kind of hard. I mean, they're not like Dark Souls hard, but they're like not like Mario easy. But I love the art style and the aesthetic and stuff. There wasn't as much typography as I was hoping there might be in it. Like I said in another episode, they're using Trajan Pro Bold, so nothing super exciting there. But Identity Letters, Allrounder, Baroque. I wasn't familiar with the full family before this, but it is part of like a super family. So let me go ahead and look at that, because maybe it'll make more sense to look at this in context. They've got Allrounder Baroque, Allrounder Grotesque Mono, Allrounder Monument, Didoni, Antiqua, Grotesque. Grotesque looks like it's a variable font as well. So huge typeface family. And I think that's mainly who this would appeal to. I don't know that this would be like super compelling to me on its own. It's a nice typeface for sure. Let's see what the price tag on this was. I think that was part of my problem with it. So the typical price tag for this was like 400 euros. Right now it's on sale for 170. For me personally, like I could think of other typefaces that I would probably grab before this. 170 is not terrible, but 400 for this alone. But what I think makes this really worth it is that if you get the full family, you can get like all of them for 1,000 euros. So then if we're talking about all of these, That makes it a little more compelling for me. But I'm skipping to the end. Let's talk about the typeface before we talk about the price and my subjective opinion on it. Let me check my notes here. I have written, this is a transitional serif. Yeah, I'm kind of reading my notes, and I kind of wrote what I already wrote before or read before. Yeah, so this is inspired by 17th and 18th century typefaces. And you can look at, yeah, I had some links here. Let's see if they open. Okay, yeah, I do have these. I prepared a little bit. I tried to prepare. So these are the ones that they were mentioning. I wasn't familiar with either one of these designers, to be honest. Christopher Van G. Klein, Fleischmann, what is this? Joan Michael Fleischmann. GL, you're much more well-versed in typography than I am in terms of, you seem to know everything. Maybe you're familiar with these two gentlemen. But anyway, these are the 17th and 18th century references that Allrounder Baroque is referring to. And they mentioned that Baroque typefaces are often referred to as like dancing and lively. I guess I could kind of see that. I don't know what's super dancing about it. Maybe in like a longer body of text, I'd be able to see that. But it's got all the things that you'd want from like a full type family like this. You know, it's got the numbers in circles, the numbers in squares, got a bunch of arrows, got a bunch of ligatures. You know, it's going to have all of the open type features that we would want in a big type family like this. And for something called Allrounder, you know, you'd want it to be able to kind of do everything. But again, I think the thing that it comes back to for me is, oh, there's all of them right there. Yeah, that looks pretty cool altogether. I think the main appeal of Allrounder Baroque, oh gosh, look at that. That's all of them for real, for real. Let's see if we can see all of that. That's a nice spread right there. So this is what you would get if you spent the €1,000 or whatever on here. I think Leneto did a Klein revival fairly recently, but I don't know much about the designer himself. Oh, I see. I will have to look that up. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know a lot of history. I'm trying to learn though. But yeah, you could see this. This is pretty impressive. You know, for €1,000, I could see how somebody, if they really needed this, would drop that kind of cash on it. I think it's similar to like I was gonna pull up Freight because we talked about Freight when we were doing the review of Thinking with Type, and I noted how well Freight worked for Ellen Lupton in that one. And I think that this could be, you know, Identity Letters version of that. Allrounder seems like it works pretty well. 900 glyphs, you know, it's a full typeface. I feel like I'm just rambling, so let's go ahead and move on. Next up is Turbeau. This is by SimpleBits. We talked about this last week. I don't think that this setup here is working well. So we talked about Turbeau last week, and it wasn't yet released. It was going to be releasing, but I brought it up because Dan was giving a preview of it. I do have a picture of the Knight Rider, reference, because last time I mentioned, let's see if we got it. Last time I mentioned that I didn't know where he was getting this reference from. He mentioned that this came from the Knight Rider end credits, and then it was also very similar to Handle Gothic. We looked at this 2 weeks ago, so I'm not going to get into. I completely misspoke. The Leneto. This is GL talking for anybody watching the replay. He says I completely misspoke. The line Leneto project is Kleisch and entirely different. Oh, okay. No worries. This is the reference here, though. So before, there's a really blurry, I guess, yeah, that looks good enough. You can kind of get what he's looking at here. So before, I couldn't find this on my own. I highly doubt that he watched my episode, but he did put a reference in the email this time around, so we can see how that matches. So as I guessed last week, there's no what do you even call them, minuscules? There's no lowercase letters. It's all uppercase, but that's fine. I think with a typeface like this, you know, Handle Gothic, if you need an actual handle Gothic revival. There are plenty of those out there with lowercase. This is Dan's take on it, and I think it's pretty cool. My favorite part of it is these little arrows here that were included. So he's got a specimen up here with the Knight Rider. Let's see if we can get this bigger. Yeah, look at that. So you can kind of do some fun things with those. Obviously, it's a display typeface, just 24 bucks. Dan's got a great license on here. SimpleBits has a great license. You know, you pay for it, you can use it everywhere. Just don't sell it or anything like that. And then I think if you have above 20 employees, then it goes up to 84 bucks. But you can use it on web, you can use it on desktop, use it wherever you want. It says desktop, web, and app. So that's pretty great in terms of a license. It's a small typeface, but if this was the aesthetic that you wanted, I think 24 bucks is a steal. And yeah, anytime that you can support independent type designers doing cool stuff like this with respectable licenses, I'm a fan of that. So we'll move on quickly from that one because we did talk about that one already. The next one is HAL Gap. HAL is the name of, it's by HAL Typefaces, and Gap is the typeface. This one's pretty cool. I had trouble finding the reference that they were referencing for this, so let's go ahead and look at it, and then I'm skipping ahead again. But this is HAL Gap, and you can kind of probably get an idea of what they're doing. They're cutting off the edges of those rounded letters. Here is all of the styles together. I don't think that those tighter, this XS, extra small version is going to be super legible at any size. But they made it, so we'll look at it. I'll go ahead and read this here because it's pretty short and it gives a decent, it gives a more concise description than I will be capable of. HAL Gap is a powerful display sans. The keen gesture of slicing, let me go ahead and put this up here so we can look at that. The keen gesture of slicing and chopping the ends off of the rounded characters allows for tight spacing and a sharp appearance. Perfect for those mighty headlines. Originally inspired by Leporello, Friedrich Poppel's 1977 design for Berthold. This is the reference that I was mentioning a second ago, where I couldn't find it, and then eventually I scrolled down and found a picture of it. But even Fonts in Use doesn't have a reference of it, so maybe they could supply that to Fonts in Use, and then maybe some other people can find some more references. Let me continue reading. Gap comes in 7 individual styles, diverging in width and weight. They range from extremely thin and compressed XXS to a wide and heavy XXL. All static styles are encased in a gutsy variable font, seamlessly shaping countless instances in between. So a little bit of marketees in there, but I think we get the idea. They're cutting off the edges of the rounded letters. And it does create a very unique look to it. Though I don't think, I don't know, I think the best use case for this, and maybe they wouldn't like this, I think the best use case for this would be when you wanted something to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe if you were talking about something, population in the subway or something like that, like too many people in one space, I could see using it for something like that. I think the variable aspect of it is going to make it really cool. You know, we can see them up here, what they're already doing with it, but throwing this into something like Cavalry or Adobe After Effects, I think people are going to be able to do some really cool stuff with something like this. But I think the use case for me would be something that would be more uncomfortable because there are some weird, I don't know, let's see. Let's do my typical sub. I can never spell it right. Subscribe. We'll go ahead 2 lines here. 2 objectives. So when you look at the all caps here, because they're cutting those off and then also there's not a ton of overshoot. I actually took a screenshot, took this into Affinity Photo and like zoomed really far in. So I was like, is there any overshoot on those C's and S's and stuff? There are, but it's not a lot. And so when you're comparing these, it does kind of make, you're not solving that optical problem that you usually try to solve. So the O's and the C's and the G's, and the S's, they look a little small compared to the rest of the typeface. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's cool, it's interesting. It definitely has like I don't know what would you call that? Like it has like a sort of rhythm to it. And there's some really interesting shapes created. I would be interested to see something like this developed a little more that made it a little less uncomfortable, because if you could do something like this where you're kind of chopping off those rounded edges, but then you still kept it usable in situations where you're not trying to make people uncomfortable, I think that would be really cool. But it's an interesting typeface. I do I do have to say, oh wait, let me show you the specimen so you can see where this inspiration came from. Popples Leporello. But like even fonts in use doesn't have Leporello, doesn't have it on here. So these got this, but then there's no specimen. So they know that it exists, but they just don't have it. I do think some of these specimens might showcase the typeface a little better. Maybe I should have started here. And the font's doing some really cool things. Like they're doing a lot of the stuff that you would expect a workhorse typeface to do, in the sense of like these numbers, you know, you can put them with the open type, you can do the fractions with the open type, the copyright with open type. Like you can do a bunch of stuff that you would expect to work in, you know, a workhorse typeface. They're doing it with this, which is crazy. But whether that was necessary or not, I mean, maybe that's not the question. Maybe like it's like the people that climb mountains. Why? Because it's there. But yeah, you can see all of the glyphs here. So it's super deep. My favorite part of it is that they have the cool S. Let me see if I can find it. I think it might be down here in their features section. Nope. Where did I see that? Shoot. Let me see if I can search for it on here. Cool S. Man. Maybe it's broken. Oh, there it is. Look. The cool S. I don't know how many fonts do this. And I know it's such a dumb thing that nobody's ever going to use. But I thought it was funny that the cool S was included as like an alternate. But yeah, there's a bunch of alternates. There's alternates T's. There's, you know, all these ligatures and stuff like that. It's very well built out if that's what you needed. I'm just not sure what the use case is for a lot of this. The thing that's a deal breaker for me on this, so that was hopefully as objective as possible. The thing that's a deal breaker for me on this one is their general license. So I'm not sure. I'm always trying to break these websites zooming in. Down here, if you look at their license, it says social media. So when you go to purchase this, you add it to your cart, you choose your license and stuff like that. So, okay, that's normal. You know, we're going to pick our employees, do all these things. They've got 6 different licenses here. They've got one for video and one for social media. If you want to create TikToks, you have to buy the license for both video and social media. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like getting old or something. I don't think I'm that old, but when I was in school, like we had desktop and web, like those were the 2 licenses. And now sometimes you've got, you know, 10 different licenses. We've only got 6 here, but the fact that you have to pay for a video license and a social media license would be enough for me to not purchase this. And maybe that's petty and like stupid. But I think if I want type designers to earn money. This is the entire like subjective part of my presentation here. I want type designers to earn money, but I'm very frustrated with the licenses and the way that it is. I'll leave it at that for now, but like for me, that would be a deal breaker. The fact that like, if I wanted to make a video, so I'd have to pay for the desktop one because you just need the desktop one, right? Yeah, digital assets. So I don't know, I'm confused. If I would have to pay for digital, web, video, social media, but it's capitalism. You know, people can charge what they want and other people will pay for it if it's worth it to them. So I'm not going to get too much on my soapbox, but it is frustrating. This one though is fun enough to make me not frustrated. This is Please by PS Type. PSTL is PS Type Lab. They refer to themselves off, like if you go to Adobe fonts, they are PS Type. Well, we'll let that do its thing automatically. If you go to Adobe Fonts, they're PS Type. They have a lot of typefaces on there. This one's not on there yet, but I think it'll get there eventually, maybe. But I think it was really fun, this little please. So the font is called Please, but then they're doing this little specimen where they drop the cherry on top of it. I'm going to point this out now so that I don't forget. There's currently a discount code. Let me look for it so that I can get this right. There's a discount if you use Say Please. It gives you 70% off the full family. So let's just test it and see if it works real quick. I'm just going to do this real quick, then we'll go talk about it. So if we want the full collection, add to cart. So instead of like $500, we add a coupon. Say Please. I'm not affiliated with this. This doesn't have anything to do with me, but look. So then you can get, instead of all 3 typefaces for $500, we're talking all 3 fonts for $150. So then we're like $50 a piece. Now I'm feeling a little more comfortable with this. But look at these variable fonts. Look at this craziness. There's not a lot of information about this. And I did email Mark Canesso is the type designer for PS Type Lab. I did email him and ask him, like, what is the inspiration for this? Do you have any references? Like, what was the goal for this? Where do you see it being used? What's the glyph count? What's the language support? Because none of that's on here, unfortunately. He did say that he would consider adding that in the future when he posts new typefaces. But right now he's traveling in Japan and wasn't able to get me the information. I just emailed him on Friday, so he wasn't able to get me the information by today, which is entirely understandable. But I'll go ahead and read what's written. It says, designed with 3 tones in mind: copy, headlines, and posters. The system is split into 3 subfamilies: please, please display, and please poster. And when you just see this, you probably would think like, oh, like that's not going to be super usable. Like, yeah, I can work it as a display typeface, but what am I really going to use it for? And then you come down and you see the regular please. And it's actually, like you could use this. It's very playful. Well, I think that's going to be better than anything I can type. It's very playful, but it's fun. And you could definitely use this for captions and stuff like that. You could use that for short blocks of text. You're not going to write a book in it, but depending on how much text you had on your website, you could probably even use it for that. I probably wouldn't, but you could. But then you come down to poster and you come down to display and you get completely, display typefaces. And I think that they're really fun. I think it's a cool combination between the 3. It's hilarious how big, how much this like poster gets expanded. So all 3 of these, obviously they share the DNA. It's all part of the please type family. But you can kind of go from please to please display, and you can see the progression there, but then it gets so big with poster that you're getting, he's got all of these little counters where there would be no counter. The G is like the counter for the G's in the middle of it. It's ridiculous, but it's fun at the same time. So yeah, I do like that there's all 3 of these on here for please, because you could realistically use please and please display for copy and then headers, and then use the please poster for times when it doesn't really have to be readable or can be like barely legible basically. But this is from PS Type Lab. Like I said, there's not a ton about it. I did talk to Mark, but he's in Japan. So this is what we got to go off of right now. I think that this right here is pretty fun. For me, even the 150 for the family without knowing exactly what I'm going to be getting is kind of a tough one to pull the trigger on. Maybe not the best use of words this week, Curtis. But I really like this. I'm interested to see if he does add more details to it, and maybe I'll pull it up real quick in a future episode if he does, because I don't know, there's something very charming about this. Maybe you guys agree, maybe you don't. But I'm a fan. This is him on Instagram, Mark Canesso. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Oops. PS Type Lab. Let's move on. The next one is another display typeface, a little less, what would you say? A little less deep, but that's how these typefaces go from Brandon Nickerson, because he just cranks these out. Look at this right now, $0 if you go get this right now, it is free. If you're watching this like a week or two from now, it's probably not free, but I'm going to repeat myself. I apologize to everyone that watches regularly. Go subscribe to Brandon Nickerson's newsletter. I think it's at the very bottom here. There's usually a pop-up. I always close it, but subscribe to the newsletter. Maybe it's in contacts. I don't know, guys. There's usually a pop-up on the screen. Subscribe to the newsletter because he always sends out, when a new release comes, it's free. They're display typefaces almost always, and they're not super deep. As you can see, this one is BN. I'm not actually going to say the name because I don't know if it's going to hurt my hurt the channel in terms of like getting people to, I don't know if it would like get flagged to not show it. But you can see the name on the screen there. I think the name is terrible, but I think the font is good. Not terrible in the sense that like I'm a prude and I care about it at all, but in the sense that like no one's gonna send this to a client. No one's gonna, you know what I mean? Like it makes it a little bit just awkward to use and talk about and things like that and search for and download and just, I don't know. I would be fine if you renamed it, but you can see what it is. I'm gonna read a little bit of it. These always kind of read the same, to be honest. A geometric sans serif built for maximum scale, designed with clarity and weight at its core, this typeface thrives in environments where words need to feel as powerful as the visuals around them. Its forms are rooted in strong geometry, circular counters, square shoulders, and unapologetically heavy strokes. I think the most important part of that is this right here. The typeface thrives in environments where words need to feel as powerful as the visuals. I do think that I can imagine this being used to... to like mask out things. You know, sometimes you see those, like the old postcards where you would have like the city images inside of the letters. There's more modern examples, I'm sure, but like that's what I think of immediately. These big, bold letters where it just needs to be legible. It doesn't need to be readable. The counters on it can kind of blend in because you just want as much space as possible to fill with something else. That would be my initial use case thought for this. Because you can see in like a body of text, you can get through it, but it's not going to be great at small sizes. And with the counters in the E, you know, it's just going to look like a square at anything smaller than this right now. If you're watching this on your phone, it probably already looks just like a square. Like I said, not super deep. It is free right now, so you can't complain too much. But what you see is what you get on here. There is lowercase in this though. Oh, that probably would have been better if I clicked on that. There is lowercase on here. I'm not sure. This gives you a decent example, I guess. You know, that's a good balance. A big, you know, you've got the big weight here that could be hard to achieve. I was trying to think, you know, you could achieve something similar with like a super heavy weight of like Gotham or Futura or something like that, because you're going to get that geometric shape and it's going to be more useful in other situations, but they don't push it quite to the extreme that Brandon Nickerson's doing with this typeface here. And sometimes you don't want a typeface that follows all the rules. Much like the name, the name of the typeface, maybe you want to break the rules on this one. And actually, this one says 2022 on it, but I think that it's brand new. Yeah, this came out 4 days ago. Unless he's republishing this, in which case he got me, but it's still okay to be able to talk about this because it's free. So I think that's worth it. But yeah, so sometimes you want a typeface that's breaking the rules, and that's kind of what the vibe of it is. You know, you're breaking the rules intentionally, and you don't care that these E's are just going to turn into squares at small sizes because you're probably not using it at small sizes. And if you are, you know, you're still intentionally trying to be, you know, break the rules. I can't think of a better analogy or another better phrase, but that's it. It's free right now. Sometimes if this was actually released in 2022, which it very well could have been, sometimes he does send out emails saying like, hey, this typeface is going to be free again for a few days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever. So another good reason to subscribe to that. Getting into some bigger foundries here, we've got Pangram Pangram. This one is called Kyoto. And in the background for this one, they noted that this was a typeface that's been in the works for a long time. Let me see. I think for like 3 or 4 years. Let's see if we can get to the description. I don't know why the description's all the way at the bottom, but it is. Yeah, so it says this design remained on the shelf for years, slowly maturing into its final form. Let me go ahead and read it, and then we'll look at the typeface, because I think that having a little bit of the background, a little bit of their goal in mind, will make it more appealing as we read it. PP Kyoto, Pangram Pangram, is a slab serif. Can we zoom in on this so maybe everybody can read? Let's see. We're really going to break the site, I think. Now there, that's okay. You probably still can't read this. PP Kyoto is a slab serif that naturally bridges tradition and modernity with a solid structure, distinctive features, and expressive character. It was designed to stand out, especially in headlines. Its bold slabs contrast with soft teardrop terminals, while prominent dots create a rhythmic flow, adding energy to the composition. Okay, so far, we're getting a lot of marketees. This doesn't describe, a lot of different fonts. Here's what I think makes this one special. The design remained on the shelf for years, slowly maturing into its current form. It all began as a study of Japanese writing systems, an exploration of how a slab serif could be visually connected with the Japanese writing systems. The result is a unique typeface shaped by trial and error and persistence, now brought fully to life. So it has 9 weights, thin to heavy, each has matching italics, and it has full Japanese character support. So let's go ahead and go back up to the top here. I guess maybe we can leave it zoomed in. It's probably nicer to have it bigger. PP Kyoto, and you can see right there, now we can understand why there's some Japanese writing there. I don't know the difference between most of the, what would you call it, CJK? Korean? No, I don't know. Korean, Japanese, Chinese. If you showed me all 3 typefaces, I wouldn't be able to choose which one is which, probably. Maybe I could pick out the Korean because I understand how it's made now. But yeah, for me, this isn't, this is just another Latin typeface to me. But I think if you were looking for something that specifically could work with Japanese and Latin characters together, this might be like a great choice. They're calling it a slab serif. I guess it's kind of like a slab Clarendon, maybe. But it looks pretty nice in general. Let me see what I got in my notes here. I said that the description was worth reading because it does a good job. And then as I read it, I didn't think it was that great. That's funny. Yeah, but I think that this is pretty comparable. It's like to Clarendon or any of those Clarendon style slab serifs. But I think the thing that really sets it apart is their intentional integration, or what would you even say that? Like the relationship between the Japanese characters and the Latin characters, I think is what's going to make this one important for the right people. Like I said, for me, not that important, but it is variable. As we can see here, they've got a little video going on. And let me see if I got a glyph count on this one. 682 for the glyphs. Got 18 styles. Let's go ahead and leave this on this while I read. 682 glyphs, 18 styles. It's a variable font. The one thing that I thought was a little surprising and a little maybe disappointing was that the open type features and stuff like that are a little less than what I would expect. And maybe that's something that'll be developed later on. But let me go ahead and scroll down. And this is all we've got on here. We've got an alternate Q. So one of them's got the little teardrop on it. One of them's just plain. The alternate $sign, it's slightly smaller. And we've got a few standard ligatures and then the old style figures. So as much as I would like to say this would be a great workhorse, I think for, most people it would be, but I don't think for anybody. If you're watching this video, if you're watching Typography News and you're looking for like an actual workhorse typeface, I think that you're probably going to want, lining, this has the old style and it has lining, but I think you're probably going to want tabular figures. I think you're going to want a bunch of those open type features that we've seen in a lot of other workhorse typefaces and some of them that we're going to look at today. But if you really need a great Clarendon that goes with Japanese writing, maybe this one's one that's hard to beat. So that's the downside that I found, but I think everything else is reasonable. I think that the pricing, you know, $540, I think again, like this is going to be a workhorse for you if you need something specifically designed to work with those two things. That's not the worst in the world. Don't love this licensing here where it's like all these things broken out, but we've all heard me complain about that enough. Let's move on to another workhorse. This one is print. And this one's interesting because instead of having like print that's just like Roman and italic, there's print and there's print script. I think this one's very nice. It's a little too condensed to like actually work as as like body text in a lot of situations, but I think that it looks very, very nice. And I did write the description on this one is worth reading, so let's go ahead and do that. This one says, the print collection is a pairing of connected script typefaces, print script, and its serif companion, print. The collection explores the intersection of calligraphic tradition and typographic structure. And that's like very evident. I mean, you could probably already see it when you're looking at print collection right there. It's very evident when you look at the two. And I think that she does do a great job of doing that. So you can see down here, maybe you can't, I'll read it to you. Design is by Sabrina Nasmius, not sure. Sabrina at Faire Type. Print script is loosely based on copperplate calligraphy, but deliberately moves away from replicating the style in its purest form. Straight connectors, simplified letter forms, and a rejection of traditional looping ascenders and descenders give the typeface a distinctly typographic character. I'm just going to read a little bit more, but because I think that she does a good job describing this. This blend of human flow and mechanical structure is heightened by the variable design space. Print spans two axes, weight from hairline to black, and optical size from display to slab, allowing it to move seamlessly from high contrast elegance to low contrast slab like solidity. Okay, that's enough. Let's go look at it. I do have some specimens here from her Instagram. Let's see if we can zoom in, or from Faire Type's Instagram. I think it's fun to look at these because, you know, sometimes just looking at the typeface in black and white doesn't quite have the same vibe as it. We can see a little bit of variable type right here, but yeah, so you can see a bunch of swashes and stuff that we're going to be coming into. Let's see this one. Okay, that's fine. We'll look at these. Can we zoom in a little on this? Nope, not really. Okay, so this one here, it's a little confusing when you're on this website or on this page here, the print collection. I was like, well, how are we even going to buy this? How are we going to do anything? You have to click on these here themselves. So you have to go to print script and print separately. But you can see how they're related and how they're, you know, distinctly different at the same time. Let's start with print because I think that's the easier one to understand. It says slightly condensed typeface, shaped by rhythm and the pointed pen. Shaped by the rhythm of the pointed pen. Yeah. So since this is based on calligraphy, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, but you can see the styles here a little bit better. It's going from hairline down to black. It looks really nice, and you can definitely see the calligraphy in the way that, I'm sure we can't zoom in on this. Yeah, it's gonna break. You can see the way those, I can't even think of what it's called, the serifs, like the terminals, kind of come together on some of these these heavier weights, because they're very smooth. You know, it's not a sharp edge like a typical like modern typeface or a slab serif or something like that. Even though I guess this is a slab serif. Anyway, I think it looks great. It has a ton of open type features, and so that's what I wanted to contrast. Following up Kyoto with this one, you know, they're serving entirely different purposes, but even this one here that's very condensed and probably isn't going to get used as a workhorse typeface, because you can see here, this isn't going to be, it's legible, but it's not readable. It's really, really tight when you're working with a typeface that is this condensed. But it looks beautiful. Maybe pair this with like a sans serif to do your body copy and stuff like that. Trying to figure out where I had. Dang it, man. I'm so rusty at this. Okay, let's just look at the print script and then I'll try to find the details, the technical details afterwards. So you can see this. I know one of the OpenType features that you can do connecting or disconnected. You can see this isn't going to work as a body text. It's super, it just all blurs together. You really have to change the sizing on here. But with the optical sizing, you can make it have more or less contrast. That's pretty cool. And then with the weight here, you can make it thicker and thinner. So you could go super small contrast, and then it's almost just like a unit, not quite, but it's getting pretty close. Or you could go super heavy and super high contrast. So I think that's pretty cool. I love seeing what different designers do with different variable axes. And you could see all the flourishes and stuff on here. So if we were just doing, yeah, there's not a good way to do like the OpenType features and turn them on and off on here. But you can see how all of this is going to connect. It just looks great. This is one of those ones where what you see is kind of what you get. There's a lot of swashes and stuff like that, but you could turn those off. And this here is going to pair amazingly with the regular print. I think if Sabrina ever designs a like an actual text version of print where it's just like print text and it's not quite as condensed, I think it's going to be a great setup. So if you had print script, print, and then she's calling this print text. Let's look at it. So she's calling this print text, but it's still just too condensed for me. Maybe other people would be fine with that. But yeah, so we do have 6 different ones here. We've got print script text, print script slab. These are all achieved with those variable axes that we looked at. So that's this one. You might have noticed the ridiculous purchase thing in my cart here, because I thought it was really funny to like look and see what this would like, what you could possibly get this price up to. I like that the Faire Type licensing here is pretty simple. Desktop, web, app. I'm okay with that. Buying it for your client, buying it for yourself. Students get 75% off. I'm sure that the license would be void if you said you were a student and you're not. But if you're just buying this for 3 people and you're just buying the desktop version, you're looking at still pretty pricey. I think there's going to be a discount added. So you're looking at $1,134. That could be pricey depending on, what your budget is. I don't think that's something that I would personally be paying, but I'm reporting on Typography News. I don't know what someone else would be using this for, so maybe that would be worth it for them. But I just thought it would be funny to see, like, this isn't even the unlimited. This is like 5,000 or less. Let's say we want desktop and web, and we'll just buy it for ourselves. We're looking at, before the discount, we're looking at almost $300,000. With the discount, we're looking at $127,000, $575. If you're going to pay, this is incredibly subjective, but if you're a company with less than 5,000 employees and you're going to pay $127,000 for, what is arguably a display typeface, because you can't use this for a body copy. Like, you can use it for a little bit, but you can't use this for a book or something. Are there any libraries for CSS with these? Darth, let me finish my thought and then I'll try to. But yeah, if you were a company with less than 5,000 employees and you were going to buy a font for $125,000, please just go get a bespoke custom typeface made. Pay someone $100,000 to get the typeface made. Darth Fruit Loops says, are there any libraries for CSS with these? That is an interesting question that I'm not sure I know how to answer. Can you explain what you mean by that, Darth? I know earlier we had talked about with Noeler. Let me pull this one up because I know that he had some CSS on here. With this one here, this was the color font. So he was talking about the features on this and he had a little bit of CSS there. Is that what you're talking about? I'll go ahead and move on while you, if Darth replies, I'll come back and we'll talk about the CSS. Yeah, so that'll be it for Faire Type's print. I think it's a great typeface. I think that the price can get hilariously expensive, but obviously that's an extreme example. That would be great to get. Please share. I'm not sure. So this is the only one I saw it for. I'll be honest, my like use for CSS is like going and looking up something that I need in like a small use case and then inserting it into like Obsidian or my WordPress or something. I took web design classes, but I don't necessarily know what we're looking for. This right here this is linked in the description. Everything's linked in the description. This one would be under Noeler. He had this on here for the color fonts, but I typically don't see much about CSS on the Foundry websites. I know like if I'm going to do like an Adobe font, they give you like the CSS. If you're going to do like a Google font, they give you the CSS to like implement it into your website and stuff like that. But maybe I'm not the right person to ask this question. But are there any libraries for CSS with these? I'm just at a loss as to like what that really means, and I don't want to pretend like I do know what it means and give you the wrong answer. The only CSS that I've seen today was on this one from Michael for Noeler, and he included it because of the color font features. So you could go in and override the colors that were on it. But we just have a few more left. We have Proximity by Blaze Type. Let me check the time. Okay, we're doing pretty good. We have Proximity by Blaze Type, and then we're going to get to a couple of unreleased typefaces. Thank you so much. Yes, I'll refer to that. That's what I was looking for. Oh, cool. Perfect. Happy I was able to help without much expertise. This is Proximity, and this is by Blaze Type. So Blaze Type, we talked about them a few times. I think this is a French brand, a French foundry. I'm like 90% sure. They do a lot of, recently you may have seen them in the news because they're doing work with Monotype with AI and typography and trying to figure out how AI might be used to like help design typefaces. So I guess something to be aware of just in general, if that's something that's important to you one way or the other. I'm still neutral on it. I'm going to wait and see how all of this pans out. But if that is something important to you, I feel like it's worth mentioning now. So this is Proximity. This is by Blaze Type. And let me check my notes real quick. Okay, so this was originally created for Proxima. They're saying this description here, some of them I've been saying like, oh, this is a good description, I'm gonna go ahead and read it. This is one of the most confusing ones for me. Proxima is a collaborative studio for creative directive and production and live music based in Barcelona. Basically, they're like a festival production studio. So this typeface was originally made for them, Proxima, and you can see it in use here. Earlier, this website was kind of broken. Luckily, I'd linked it already. So if you go to proxima.com, you're going to get like this broken website. I don't think this is in the description. I guess I can add it later. But what I had to do is do like /intro, and then we could kind of see a little bit of how they're using it. But I think it really works with this brand. So I'm going to show this before we get into the real font. I think it works with this brand because they've got all these extra little things where they're kind of like got these pixelated areas and all of this weird abstract stuff going on. But yeah, so this was originally created for Proxima, and you can see it up here with the intro. It's been expanded and released to the public through Blaze Type's website. We can look at the pricing and stuff like that afterwards. It's only going to be supporting Latin European languages. You can see the full list there. For me, those are rarely needed, luckily. You know, English English is pretty well supported. But yeah, so we've got 90 styles, which is crazy. But there's basically 6 main styles, I think. Let me see. We've got Proxima Dot, Proxima H-Line, Proxima Pixel, V-Line, and we've got Braid, Nimble, and Pearls. So you can get these as a, let me double check. I think you can get these as trial fonts. I didn't write it in my notes. But if we scroll down, we can see these a little bit bigger. So there's Proxima Pixel, and this is kind of how it started out. It started out as like a pixel font, and they throw a little bit of shade at typical 8-bit fonts because they're not based on, a lot of them aren't very well based in traditional typography. I can go either way on that. Like, yeah, it's cool that you're doing something that doesn't look like every other pixel font, but at the same time, pixel fonts typically look like pixel fonts because they're more authentic to the time period when they were used. So with that out of the way, this is the basic one. You know, that's going to be the dots. But when these are at small sizes, you can't necessarily tell a huge difference. So let's go ahead and zoom in. This is Braid, and then you can start to see what's going on. So using that pixel grid kind of as a baseline, but then they're, like they're saying, they're braiding these. They're keeping basically like one continuous line and kind of making these shapes. So I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this on the screen, unfortunately. That's as big as I can make it, because I think even if I zoom in, it just breaks the website. We can try though. Yeah, I'm zooming in. It's doing nothing. So that's the braid. And then, did we break it already? Okay. You really can't zoom in too much on typography websites, unfortunately, Foundry websites, because it's already so complicated trying to get these fonts to display and stuff. But I think it's really interesting what they're doing here with this basic like pixel font that we saw with Proxima, and then they're turning in all these other versions of it. But yeah, they've got the braided one there, and then they've got, let's see, I really like the dot one. Let's go look at the dot one. Okay, so this is the dot one. I wish that these would be bigger so you can kind of see what it looks like on here, but you don't really get to appreciate all the details unless you really zoom in on it. So this is Proxima dot 25, and this is Proximity dot Italic 25. I just want to get both these up here at once. Okay, so we've got, all of these are going to have the Roman and the Italic, and they also have different weights. I'm like 99% sure this is variable. Let me check. Yeah, this is variable, and I wrote that it's even color. That's interesting. I'll have to check that. Maybe I misspoke there. I think it's variable. I don't think it's color. So they do have different weights of the dots. Now, these probably aren't variable because I think you could do it variable, but anyway. So the dots are the way that they're making this bolder, like the actual outline, the actual like shape, silhouette of the typeface doesn't change, but the dots change. So it's kind of like, oh shoot, what were those dot printers called back in the day? Like matrix dot printers? I don't know. But yeah, so that's how they're making it bigger, by putting bigger dots on there. Let's look at some more of these. So those are more dots, more dots, more dots. So there's 90 different typefaces, 90 different versions of them on here, styles on here. So we're gonna be scrolling for a second. So then they did it with lines. So you've got the lines for both of these, and then obviously you can make the lines bigger and smaller. This website isn't great to navigate. You do these drop downs and you're not on the line part. So we're just gonna look at what we see. We're just gonna see what they're already showing us. But you can see they've got the lines there. We'll look at a couple more. I can already tell this is getting repetitive in my own head, and I would not be watching. This one's nimble, so instead of like the braids, they're kind of like cutting out the inside. I think we're getting the idea, right? And then we've got the traditional Oh, this one's pearls. We're getting closer to like a traditional pixel one. I think this one's kind of fun. Let's see if we can get to the traditional pixel. So finally we get to the traditional pixel, and I think any shade that they threw at typical 8-bit fonts kind of goes out the window here because, you know, we're looking at a typical 8-bit font right here. They are doing some fun things, and this is going to be pretty well developed. If we go down to the bottom, you'd be able to look at all of the different characters that come with it. Let's go down to the technical part though. Maybe not. What do I have written down? I apologize. I thought that I had more written down about this one. But Blaze Type usually does do a decent job, including a lot of features and stuff like that. The pricing on here is very strange because there's like 90 different typefaces. So if you wanted the full package and you click package, you're looking at like almost, I don't know what this would be, like $4,000. It's like 3,840 euros. I think this is one of the rare occasions where I would go in and pick the actual fonts that I wanted. Like I wouldn't just say, give me the full typeface family, because realistically, you're probably never going to use all 90 of these. So I think if you like the dots, use the dots. If you like the braids, go buy the braids. But yeah, interesting. And it is interesting to see a typeface that doesn't look like a typical 8-bit typeface. And it's interesting to see the original in use here. I'm also always hesitant to purchase a typeface that was designed for something else. I know like Beyonce's fashion line typeface came out a few months ago, it was released to the public, or maybe it was longer than that ago. I know TikTok Sans just got released to the public. I would be very hesitant to use a font that was created for another brand just because it's going to be designed for their voice, you know? But this one was expanded, so I guess it's got a little bit extra going on. And maybe that works for you. Let's get through 2 quick previews here. These are coming from Blaze Type, and all I have for you on this one from Blaze Type is this email, because there's no mention of it anywhere else yet, because this is just a preview. So the first one is Eurotour, and there's also no release date in mind. This is one that they said they started back in 2024. And it is based on this right here, or not based on it, but it's got influence from Zeitung Grotesque. And there's actually not a ton of uses from it here. Even if you click on these fonts in use ones, I'm not sure. I guess it's these here at the bottom. But they also mentioned that it's got a little bit of influence from Impact. And I think when we think about Impact, we can see that a lot easier. I think more people are probably familiar with Impact than they are with whatever this German typeface is right here from like the 1920s or 1905. But yeah, so we saw a recent revival of Impact. You know, not necessarily a revival, I shouldn't say that. Kel Troughton put out a typeface recently called Substantial. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. Put out a typeface called Substantial recently. And he noted the similarities between this and Impact. And I think we see the same thing here with HAL Type. So we were looking at Blaze Type, but this is HAL Type, and their similarities to Impact as well. The difference here is that they're going to have slanted and back slanted versions of this. And as you can see, this is very much a work in progress. They've got notes on the progress report here that they're showing us, but it's going to have Cyrillic. It's going to have a lot of character support and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see what comes from Eurotour with HAL Type. And then the second one from HAL Type is, oh shoot, I looked up how to say this. Let me think for a second. Amaranthine. I don't know if this one's actually ever going to be available to the public. So this one here, do I have references for this one? I do. So they're referencing this one. They're saying that it's got some influence from Nicholas Jensen. So we can look at those. I think most people are probably familiar with Nicholas Jensen. Hightower was a version that Tobias Frere Jones, where he went back and created a version of Nicholas Jensen's typefaces. That's it right there. And then the second influence for them was Grotesque number 9. Okay, so let's go back to this now that we know that. So they're developing 2 different typefaces for this book publisher, Amaranthine Books. They are a boutique publisher that creates like high concept art book editions of literary classics. And they are going to have their own typefaces, very much like, you know, the old printers used to back in the day when a publisher would have their own fonts. And we don't know much about it other than those 2 influences that I just mentioned, Grotesque number 9 and Nicholas Jensen typefaces. But we can see a little bit of preview of it here. It looks nice from what I can see. I don't know if this is actually going to be available to the public. This might just be a project for the publisher. It might just be a project for Amaranthine. But I did save these for the end because I don't have much to say about them. They do look nice, and they'll be coming down the pipe. Is it coming down the pipe or coming down the pike? I don't know. Probably pike. Pike is like a hill, right? Check. All right. Let me switch to the face cam, and we will get out of here. Face cam. There we go. Like I said, it's been 2 weeks since I've been here, so I'm a little rusty. I feel like I'm always a little rusty, but definitely more so than usual. But yeah, I think that any of these typefaces are really cool. Maybe you'll have more fun exploring them on your own. Everything is linked in the description. One thing I will note is that last week I got a comment from a new subscriber that said, what did they say? Something along the lines of, should we go look it up? Let's see if I can look it up real quick. It was my most recent comment, so it should be pretty easy to find. Community. Comments. It said, just found this channel. I think the format needs a little bit. Just found this channel. I think the format needs a bit of polishing, but the contents of it are great. A design news video format is something I'm definitely interested in, subscribing and hoping to see this get even better. I appreciated the comment because not because it was critical. That's fine. Please give me critiques. Please help me make this better. But because this person noticed the potential of what Typography News could become. I try to make this an iterative process. I'm trying to get a little bit better each week. I'm very much a perfectionist. You may have noticed by the fact that my book reviews come out so slowly. That's because those are pre-recorded. I'm doing a bunch of editing. I want them to be good. I'm trying to be iterative. I know it's never going to be perfect, but hopefully each week we get a little bit more perfect, a little bit better. Right now I'm focused on the content and just trying to get you guys the most relevant typography news that I can. We'll add all the bells and whistles with the news layovers and stuff like that, and hopefully get some, I'll figure out how to do this a little bit better. But I appreciate anyone that watched this, especially if you made it to the end, especially if you joined live. Thanks for joining again, GL. Thanks for joining Darth Fruit Loops. And anyone else watching this in the future, thank you for watching. I'm going to be here next Sunday, and we'll do more than just new fonts next week. We'll getting into all of the branding, all of the fun stuff, and we'll look at any new typefaces that do release. So thanks for joining. I'll see you next Sunday. I'm Curtis Simpson. This was Jectives Typography News. Bye.